And so it's wonderful to have everybody with us. And we've already had a bit of a chit chat for those of you who are just joining us on this recording. I know you're out there somewhere. So we've already gotten friendly. And we're going to proceed now with this wonderful presentation. Joe Blackmore, I can't remember exactly. I think she contacted Auntie's bookstore for some reason, and we kind of connected anyway. And I found out that she had this wonderful, what I guess we now call hybrid publishing company. And we chatted about her maybe being able to make a presentation to us about what that's like. She is in Canada, so I'm fascinated about how all that works. And I'll let you share what your hopes were for the border, okay? Different border, not the same border, not the one down there, the one up here. So Joe Blackmore, I think you started the company, didn't you?
Yeah, yes. Well, I actually bought it. And I'm going to tell you how I got into this business.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Let's go for it.
I had been an art publisher just before I got this phone call asking for advice on making art cards to go with books. And I came down to Granville Island in Vancouver and gave her advice. And then I said, turnabout's fair play. I want to know about what you do. And she told me about being a publisher. And I said, that is the most interesting job I could ever imagine. And she said, do you think so? I have 3 books to write. And I can attest that you can't write books and be a publisher. At least I can't. Because they both require a great deal of work, don't they? That's for sure.
I think you're right. Yeah.
But I've said to students, they can use that line. That's the most interesting job. Anytime they want to get a job, because that's how I got this one. So
how long has it been since you bought the company?
Yes, I bought the company. Yeah.
And how long ago?
Oh, 28 years ago.
Oh, well, see, it was just, nothing to it there.
That's right. And I'd been many other things before that. I'd taught high school biology and science, and I'd done art studio tours and then curated art shows and published art. And that's why I got into being asked that question. So,
wonderful.
And so because you guys are just south of Nelson, I want you to know that I've published about 9 books from Nelson. There's a lot of, and they're often Americans that have come here. Those people that come up to Canada for political reasons, and that they're very valuable. Yeah. So I'll maybe switch to the slides now and share screen to show you a few of the things we're doing. And I've heard that you're quite interested, and I can tell from the fact that most of you have written several books, and that you have a lot more experience in writing than I do. I write letters a lot. I have the feeling that you're more into alt text than some of the publishing I do. I mean, I'm going to show you some things that are more visual, but it's mainly covers and things like that that you have to, we publishers have to pay attention to, and you have to go along with or argue about and if you want to. So let me go into share screen now, and I'll let's see.
See at the other end.
Yeah, there we are. Yeah. Okay. I'll get it to the right full screen thing here. I have to look at my let's see. Full screen. Okay. There we go. Okay. So do you get this big bag thing there? Okay. So Granville Island Publishing, I have been on Granville Island until COVID came along, and then I had to leave it because of a small space. It was a big shame because I was right above a shipyard and had boats coming up around me all the time. Yeah. These three covers here are pretty important. The first one is the reason I'm with you today. And I'll go into that a bit more. I was accompanying this author at the trade show in Portland and met a lot of the people from Annie's bookstore, and because somebody from Annie's bookstore had said that they were interested in getting a copy of this book, and they will get a copy of this book very soon. And the second book here is another new release, and it's a novel by an eminent scientist. It's his second novel, or third novel. We've done two of them with him. And it's about a war bride that comes to Bamfield on Vancouver Island and meets all of those eccentric people and finds her posh there. And then Luminous, that's a book that in Forward Review's competition was a finalist, and there's only 6 art books that are finalists, and we're very, very proud of that. It's a fantastic book, very complicated, but straightened or made clarified by us, I think. Yeah. So then this is I've already told you about me pretty well, and I will say that being a volunteer for UNICEF helped me not be in the classroom, but become what I became, an art publisher, and all of these things. Being a volunteer can change a person's life. And so I've told you how I got into publishing. And I think I've discovered, I've done business books and self-help books and lots of other kinds of books, but these seem to be what I end up concentrating on. And you notice that I'm not really concentrating because it's pretty broad. I would be bored out of my mind if I focused on one subject, I think. I'm not that kind of a person. And one of the state awards that I'm very proud of here is Hawaii. It won a history award for all of Hawaii, and it was on Puoko, a little town with petroglyphs on the main island. So you'll see that people come, nowadays we're so lucky to be able to have people work from all over the world on things. And we're so lucky to be able to get our books all over the world too. We're very privileged, I think. Even though it means that there's a plethora of books. But two of my editors live in Portland, and my indexer is in Florida, and designer in Quebec, so anyway. I thought that I'd intersperse some of the words and everything with some pictures and that, and some points here. This is about a title, and I think it was agonizing coming up with the title for this book, or I could say it was not inspirational, but it really taxed our brain to come up with it, but it turned out to be pretty good, I think. And of course, this is a nonfiction book, and I have the impression that you guys are mostly fiction. And so a subtitle is not as important in fiction, but a short title is important. And I certainly think it's one that can be remembered instead of, when you're in a book club and you can't bloom and well remember the name of the book, it's taxing. Yeah. So, and the title legible from 10 feet, and it looks good at 2 inches, on the website. So I think that's all self-evident. Here's some of the, it's important to get reviews, and important to get them from prestigious places. And one needs a publicist to get that, you don't, it's very, very hard to do it on your own. And you have to have a very good book to get it, so that's important. Now, if you came to me, gave me a call or sent me an email, I'd ask, what are your goals? And I'm just going to flip to the next slide. Your book's potential readers. Is it for family and friends, niche markets, like a giant business card, or for bookstores and the world, eh? And I'm getting the impression that most of you would like to be in the third category. So going back, we offer a reader's report, usually. That's what we start with. That gives us both what's strong about your book and what still needs to be done. And often what still needs to be done is the length of it may need to be dealt with. It's either too long or too short. If you're a beginning author and you're asking people to read 500 pages, that's asking a lot, and then with the reader's report, people are really thrilled when they get it. Sometimes they go back and work on their book for a year afterwards, but they really do get strong advice. And if the book is in really good shape, then I ask the person who's looking at the book is an editor, okay? It's a person that would be your substantive editor if you went with us. And so it's an in-depth level of knowledge that they have, and they give it to you. And as I say, if there's not too much work, the report's so positive that well, we make certain you get your money's worth from the reader's report. They go back in and do some very specific suggestions as that people find very valuable. And I like people to go and do their research and look at a lot of books so that they have a good idea of where their book fits in the bookstore and where it and what other books of its ilk are looking like, so that they'll fit in. Okay. It's you've all heard, I think, that once the book is published, only half of your work is done. You've still got to do, even if you're in traditional publishing, you've got to do, the author's got to do a lot of work, and they cannot be shy. They've got to overcome shyness, because they've got to get out there, or somebody else has got to do it for them, and that costs. Okay. I'm just intersecting here with some things that have happened recently with the company. The same person that came down with me, Alan Jones, to Portland for the trade show, also decided that he wanted to show his book at Frankfurt. And so I arranged with him to show all of these books at Frankfurt. These are ones that I'm presuming you all know, that's the biggest trade show in the world, book trade show. And I wanted the big books to be big and the small books to be small. And these are books that are international or recent in scope. And I want to draw your attention to the one on the top right here, even though it doesn't show up as well. It's a title I probably should have argued over her with, called Grown-Uppedness. It's the only negative thing that the reviewers have said about the book. And she came from the US, and she created a book that it's the one that has the nurse log there. Okay, she wanted a nurse log, and it's a book that I'm giving to a lot of friends who are getting on in years, and who have to contend with children or parents, and everybody wanting to be a grown-up, and she really helps them to do that. She was a psychologist, and that's an important book there. The one in the middle, I'll show you the cover of the full spread. Prostate Cancer Strikes. Just got word today. I mean, we already know that it's being given to all the guys that get prostate cancer in Canada, but now they're going after getting it into all the urologists in Canada. So we're very proud of that. And so that's sort of nice. And the book over on the left, the Great Walks of Vancouver, that's one of the first books I did, and that changed our lives. My tennis group, we did the walk from Horseshoe Bay all the way to the USA, and there were 4 other hikes in there, and walking really helps bring a group together, even more than tennis does. So anyway, I'll leave that, but it was really good to start analyzing covers and so forth. So who can help you? I call it with the pre-press. And you probably know all this. I think I've already said the reader, a publisher. I have often had to deal with even transcribing handwritten notes and that, but you guys would be all ahead of that. And so it's going down to substantive and copy editing. And I 9 times out of 10 have 2 different editors working on your books. I ask editors who are applying to work for me which they prefer, and then I give them that job. I think they're very different jobs. And then designers, if you're ever doing things by yourself and that, don't forget the proofreader. That is so important. And then if it's a nonfiction book, indexer. And I've got the publicist there, and that publicist should be brought in early, okay, in the process, okay, because Kirkus and the big reviewers, Library Journal and that, they all want to hear about your, get the advanced reading copies 3 months before pub date. You know, you don't do your publicity after, okay? You get involved early. There's a lot of things in this process that happen in parallel. Like while the book is being edited, one can be looking at design and figuring out what the cover and the title should be, and that, and getting yourself comfortable with social media. Okay, to put together a custom quote. Okay, you'll and that's what I do, because all my books are different. I can't fit them into a category. We need to know what your goals are. And if it's like, if it's about Spokane, maybe it might not have the reach that another book might have. I don't know, but that might mean that your publicity and marketing budget doesn't have to be as big. You're not having to travel as much. The word count, you probably all know that that's the measure for editing is 250 words per page. That's 12-point type, and that helps us decide if a book is too long or too short. And for the market, and it's just a suggestion, you know, it's up to you. What do you want to do? The state of the manuscript. Sometimes a book like a science book, and that's pretty dense and complex. I'll have to say that if it is, we try to make sure that it is clear. I truly believe in making writing accessible. I feel like that scientists and medicine and that people have an obligation to translate their jargon into simple language and make it accessible. And then I did have back here just a second. Editing is the biggest variable, and we have to make sure that all of those things in fiction are taken care of and rigorously. And then the nonfiction, I've got just a little bit here, but there's way more involved with nonfiction than just a table of contents and an index. But these are some of the guidelines. Then, in order to get a quote together, so you can see that the reader's report will say, "Oh, this writing is very good," or "Every sentence needs modification." Sometimes it does, because if a person's first language is not English, there can be challenges. And we've had one where the professor bragged that he'd never had a lesson in English, even though he'd taught prime ministers economics and that. And it required an enormous amount of work to get it shipshape, the novel, but then it received a review in a prestigious newspaper. So then if a book is black and white, it's not as expensive to produce. Soft cover is not as expensive. It's best to keep a standard size. There can be one smaller size than the 5.5 by 8.5. I don't quite have it in my mind, but that would be okay too. But if you want to keep your costs down, go with standard. And then page count, you can keep that down too, but you want breathing room in your book too, so that's important. And if there are pictures, I always say that if they often determine the dimensions of your book. I don't think that pertains to anyone here. Is there anyone that? Anyway, you can tell me later if that pertains. Advanced reading copies. We produce those. That's I imagine. Well, if you don't know what an advanced reading copy is, just go into Annie's bookstore and ask them for a copy, and then turn it over, and you'll see that's a book that's sent in early stages to reviewers and to prominent bookstores to get reviews and to get get pre-sales. Blads. I'm taking a drink right now. That's book layout and design. We do that for some of our colorful books and that. And then you have to think of, I always focus on getting the book right, okay, getting it as finalized as possible before having the file go over to become an ebook or an audiobook. You don't want to be making changes on all three afterwards, okay? And so I'm showing you a few examples of some of the agonies that we go through. Like, we had created this Sammy Squirrel and Rodney Raccoon. It was a 32-page book that had been condensed or made into a picture book by the author due to demand. He'd previously had a 90-page early readers book, but the images inside were in black and white. But the artist had colored them, and so he decided to do it this way. And he made the story simpler, about these two animals going off to Japan on a raft, helped by whales and things. And they freed the deer from Nara Park that were being, the deer were being de-antlered. And so we thought that this image on the right was a pretty good image. It showed action and that. But when we found that it came back and from the stores, and we realized that parents who are buying a book for their young child wouldn't necessarily want something that looked scary, you know? And so we went back to the more peaceful image that we have here, and we're hoping that does better. The blad, I'm hoping that you guys will click on my website and take a look at the insides of these books, because they're really spectacular. And the Hidden Zoo, well, it's one, and then Luminous, the art book, is the other, and they are well worth looking. And there's the full cover of Prostate Cancer Strikes. The other people that you need help with for sales and marketing is the e-book producer, the web designer, publicist, trailer producer, online coach, sales reps, marketers, and distributor. A lot. So the cost of a book depends on, I'm just sort of reviewing what I've already said, these factors. And it's pretty easy for me to take a look at, you know, when we have a conversation about all the things from printing on down, because that's you know, fairly standard. The big variable is the editing. If and that's a judgment call, and so the further you're along on your book, and if you're in a group, I think you are further along than when people just work alone. And so I hope that that can help you figure it out. I would say that these days we're exceedingly lucky to have digital printing available so that you can try things out, and then run with them with a big run, and a bigger run as an offset printing starts at 1,000 and goes on. But you can also do print on demand, and that I used to snort my nose up at, but I'm not anymore, because why have books travel so far? I'm thinking of you know, when our distributor in England orders a book, they can just get it coming up from Southampton instead of shipped all the way from Vancouver, you know. And Australians can get the book, and ebooks, as one person said to me, you know, in Africa and many parts of the world, they don't have access in some parts of, they have a cell phone and they can read a book on a cell phone. And so we've got to think of providing that as well and making it big enough for them to see. And that, so it's I think it's an opportunity. It's also an expense though, you know. So now the choosing hardcover, softcover, that's hardcovers are obviously more expensive. Color is full color is really way more expensive than black and white. Way more color, way more. And but you can charge more. So I haven't given you any figures yet, and I bet you'd like that. Yeah. So I'll break off here. I'll just get my last slide here, and there's a QR code that you can click on that would take you to our website, and I'd be happy to answer questions. And I should say that if I was given a manuscript with a medium amount of editing, and we were making a 200-page book, and it was going to go out into the world with full thrust for distribution and marketing, and that and say we were starting with 1,000 books. Well, that would run one about $15,000. Okay, that's my best idea right now. And if it's a color book, a lot more. If it's needs a lot of editing, more. The better prepared you are, the less it is. Okay. And you wanted to know, okay, I can go back to being a person now. Let's see. I'll go off screen sharing. Let's see. I'm just trying to get my cursor down to, oh, okay. No. What happened? Okay. There. Okay.
I just stopped it for you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
And Joe, you're muted. Everybody's muted right now except me. So if you want to unmute yourself, that'd be cool. I can actually do it, I think. There you go. Before I open it up, this is kind of a tough question, maybe, but it came to mind because of the way that you function as a sort of a full, from the beginning to the end of the book. And we have had people working with other publishers who were a little disappointing. And, but because they owned the Isbans on the books, the people couldn't get their rights to them so that they could take the book and run with it. So can you address that? How does your
Yeah.
company, yeah,
The author owns the rights to the book, okay? And if there's a parting of the ways prior to publishing, that happened last year with me, and the chap went to a New York publisher, but he wanted to use our cover and our design. And so I asked, and we agreed that he would pay for those services. And I'd already given him it anyway, but he's paying for that. But he owns the rights to it totally. Yeah.
and I guess what I was thinking was, let's assume you've completed the entire thing.
Yes.
It's all ready, it's all done, but then something, like distribution doesn't happen the way it was said it would or something. If they want to take this elsewhere, like we've had
Yep.
people that wanted to go on to Ingram with their book, but they couldn't because the ISBN was tied up. So they had to sort of republish it all over again with their own, themselves. So if
No,
they paid for all this, then
yeah,
no,
no, the author owns the rights to the book. Yeah, yeah. There's no question of that at all. No. And I if a book is print on demand or maybe not that exactly, but digitally printed, I retain the files because it's being reprinted every few hundred books, and that might happen every year or so, and that, but there's still, and we change it to third printing or fourth printing appropriately, not and so but the authors still own the files, absolutely.
And how about for distribution? I know, I assume you would distribute in both Canada and the US, and maybe even other places. How do you handle the pricing on the product, for those different places? Because, it's not the same on both books.
Yeah, it's well, we put the American price and the Canadian price on,
Mhm.
and we're distributed in the UK for Europe, and and uh, uh, and one of our major distributors is Ingram, and they print for Australia and
Yeah.
all over. That's a huge change from when I started,
Mhm.
and when I started, digital printing wasn't even there, so
Yeah.
it's they've come a long way. Yeah.
Been a lot
And
of changes.
pardon, yes, yeah. I want to mention one thing that there used to be an entity called Books to the Border, okay? And this lady's husband had been an antiquarian bookseller, and she decided to help lots of bookstores and publishers get their books across the border from Canada, out of Vancouver. And then this entity called Chit Chats came along, and so and she was getting pretty tired of it, and so we have a great entity that gets our books across the border, and books are not, there's no duty on them, and there's no provincial sales tax on books. And you guys have media mail, which is fantastic for, in fact, I ship my books to England from the States because I just get them across the border through media mail and then to New York, and I really appreciate it. I wish we had it in Canada. Yeah.
Well, we're coming up on an hour. I know maybe some folks have other stuff they have to do, but I think there's probably some questions too. Do we want to open up screens all together? If you don't all jump at once, we'll be okay. I see that Johanna, you've got yours open, and Herbert. So do you have a question, Johanna?
I do. Joe, would you be willing to talk a little bit about audiobooks and
What?
Audio.
about audiobooks?
Audiobooks. Oh, I'll tell you that my first introduction to audiobooks was done by a blind author who produced his book in 5 different ways, and one of them was an audiobook that got what was it called? Anyway, the automatic voice, and it was done in one day down in Australia for him. And he also, I was quite interested in the fact that he'd had the Braille version done in a prison in the state of Washington by transcribers there. And then I suggested that he get an audio person, a person to read it who had his British accent and that, and so it came out that way too. But it was an amazing feat for, he was totally blind and he did it, you know, and I haven't had many done. Okay, I do know audio producers, and I certainly know a lot of people that are reading, I mean, absorbing their books that way, but it's not something that I know a ton about. Do you? I mean, there's what one in southern Oregon that I know. Do you? What you said you're a beginner, but you're already going there.
Oh, well, I have 2 novels out, and both of them, you know, so they're in print and ebook, but I'm also looking then of, okay, how getting them to be audiobooks as well.
Okay.
That might be something we can look into for a presentation here on the Guild, you know, from somebody that produces them and get insights that way.
Yeah, I can pass on the information that I have too.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah.
Herbert, were you wanting to say something? You unmuted. I don't know if that was just to have some freedom or if you had something you wanted to ask.
Well, you know me, I have an outdoor voice. I just have to step in every now and then. I do have one observation on audiobooks. If you're going to produce one, get the narrator from the country that the audiobook was supposed to be written about. Nothing irritates me more than an FBI agent, a female FBI agent in Washington, D.C. with a British narrator, mispronouncing all the English words. That just drove me berserk when I heard that.
How about you, Dwight? You got your sound on? Are you off or what? Something.
Definitely. I want to jump in on the audiobook conversation because I actually did my audiobook at the Spokane Central Library. They have a studio set up right there, and the sound engineer, he is an amazing guy. And we took about maybe 8 hours altogether. So I did about 3 trips, you know, and my book ended up being 90 minutes of poetry and essays and so forth. And he was very well versed on the technicalities as a producer of the audiobook. And it's a free service, you know, so you can definitely avail yourself of that. And it's only at the Central Library where they have that, the setup on the third floor with the podcast room and so forth. They have a full studio. And if you're musically inclined, they also have a full range of musical instruments. If you want to get fancy on a banjo or piccadilly while you narrate your book for yourself. And I do agree with Mark about the authenticity of the voice, you know, where your character is from matters for the narrator. And don't be afraid to narrate it yourself. You know, it took a lot out of me. I needed a nap after every session. But if that's the route you want to go, Spokane Library has all the resources there for you.
Yeah, I plan to investigate that a little because, you know, we're putting on that thing in April. The guild part is going to be on the third floor just across from that studio. So I want to check it out too. So looks fascinating. All of us talkers, you know, we think we're capable of reading a book as well as these professionals. No, I can tell the difference at the drop of a pen. I'm sure
Yeah.
you did great though, because you know your poetry and everything. It's a little bit different critter.
Well, I tell you what, it was a fun experience, and
I
it
bet.
was at times a little bit difficult because when you go into the studio, it's easy talking with friends in person, even virtually. But once that big microphone is in front of you and the sound guy is saying to do that again and enunciate better or use your voice in different ways, you know, but it's a fun experience and I would recommend it for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, just to get your feet, it's free. I mean, hey. Okay, how are we doing? We're a little after 8, but any more questions or comments or things anybody wants to bring up? We certainly,
Well, I don't,
yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
I know I lucked out when it came to audiobooks. Of course, my daughter's an ex-radio DJ, and she's got a whole recording studio set up in her house, and she's the one that's been doing, she's done 2 of my books. She's almost done the third, but you know, these things are 11 hours long.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
takes, if you're going to hire somebody, that gets up there
Yeah.
for price.
It sure does. You know, that's one of those long, ongoing conversations that we have to have, I think, about just about everything we want to do. There are people who make their living off of editing and, well, all facets of it. And a good professional at their job is worth what they earn. But they can't sit around and do it for free like it's a hobby. And so I think we all understand that, but also we all have our own budgets, so we have to kind of carefully decide what we can afford and what we can't. And so that's all valid. But I used to think I could do everything, and now I kind of lean towards the idea of trying to help support some of the people in the industry that are doing such a good job. You know, they deserve it. But if you're lucky like Herbert and you have a professional in the family, hey, go for it. Well, Joe, I really want to thank you for your time, and I look forward to following up with you. And you mentioned some information, and we really appreciate it. Thank you. You have anything you want to say to us as a last sort of ditch here?
Well, I'm looking forward to getting there one day, you know, now that we're moving around a bit more. And going into the bookstore, I was really impressed with, I met about 5 people from bookstore down at the trade show, and that shows that it must be quite a force, I'd say, in your town. And what you're doing, keeping a writers group going, and that is huge, I think, to as a contribution to your group, you know, and your town. It makes it a strong town. And I was really glad to hear about the library, and that's sounds like a big place, you know, when you have that facility to do it. I know we have it in the main library in Vancouver is fantastic, and I'm not using it enough. I know, but anyway, good. And I would get your son doing some more audiobooks and doing a little bit of barter around so that other people can benefit, and he'd feel great doing it too. So, yeah. Okay.
I had a question for Joe, if possible. First of all, Joe, thank you for coming and taking your time with us. My question is this: a couple of folks have been approaching me of working on an anthology, tricky word, anthology. You
Yes.
know, so have you done, or is that something that you're set up for? And what are your thoughts on the entire anthology process? And like a couple of authors coming together, each contributing a chapter.
But that's great. I worked on one on First Nations, a bunch of professors who were doing a book in early days on land claims, and that an anthology takes a really good editor to pull, to approach the people, and there's got to be good connections and respect for the writers and that, and sort of the parameters for the whole production. But it would be just fun, yeah, to help. I've done many books by Americans, and I have American editors, and that there's sensitivities that one has to have for different situations, and you have to decide, whether I would want to make certain that all the writing was brought up to the best level that it could be, not making anybody look less, in a sense. Yeah. So so happy to look at it and talk with you. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I'm gonna turn off the recording and if I can.